How's it going, ladies and persons? I'm Bobby Sixkilla. Welcome back to the Divine Deception. We can no longer run Mercury's one, we can no longer run Val's one, and we can no longer run Lavatory's one, because we don't have the right key for any of those, I believe. So we have to pick a new one. We haven't started these two. We have started these two. The hacker one seemed kind of boring to start with, so let's go back to this one. I don't remember what it is, but we're going to jump into Act 2 of whatever it is. Let's do it. The Hero. I like good music. It was just nice. Not much more to it than that. I just like listening to good music. It put me in a good mood. My mind didn't wander as much when listening to music. Recently I'd gotten to this one singer, Talay. I really dug his style. His songs had a lot of really moving lyrics. I really connected with them. It felt like she was talking right with me. She was really talented. Man, imagine being born able to make music like that. What would life be like? I envied it, I truly did. I wonder if I could get a ticket to one of Talay's concerts. I had plenty of money, but no real way to spend it. So far I'd just been saving most of it. After all the jobs I did, I had an amount of money that smart people would know what to do with. But I was never cut out for that. I didn't know how to spend it to make a profit, and I didn't know how to spend it to have fun. Concerts seemed fun though. The only question would be if Talay would be touring in Panthea anytime soon. I didn't want to leave in case I was needed on short notice. I wonder if I could get Talay to hold a concert here. Would that be possible? I didn't like the line of thinking I was going down. It was a little bit too self-motivated. At any rate, it was more than late enough. I pressed pause on the music and took out my headphones. Let's see. From my vantage point, I didn't see any threats. Still couldn't be too sure. I began to sweep the area around the building. Were there any witnesses? Were there any spies? Oh, we're the guy who killed, the guy at the gala. I forgot who the guy was that got killed in the gala, but we're the murderer now, right? Were there any spies? The answer to that last question was probably no. The answer to that first question was probably yes. Unfortunately, the governor's office was the heart of Panthea. It was almost inevitable there'd be plenty of passers-by walking around. It was extremely late, which tempered it somewhat. But Panthea was a city where far more people were awake at hours like this. There was nothing that could be done. The only way to reliably enter the building without any witnesses would be if there was some sort of secret underground entrance or something. And that just seemed silly. Well, what could you do? I had on a nondescript grey hoodie, a baseball cap and a face mask. At this time of night it'd be extremely hard to identify me. And more likely than not, nobody'd even notice me making my way over there. All this thought was an exercise in paranoia, but I like to exercise my paranoia as often as possible. Anyways, paranoia's been checked. Time to start walking over toward the building. The governor's building had, to put it lightly, a lot of security. More security than most would expect. A team of 3 guards patrolled the building at all times. There were countless cameras, both inside the building and out. Some overt, some hidden. The building didn't have many entrances. There were even a limited number of windows, each being too small to reasonably enter. There was only 2 ways into the building. There was the back exit that had a full-on shutter drop behind it during off hours. And there was a front entrance, a wide open set of glass doors. Bulletproof glass to be precise, not that the average person would be able to tell. After hours it had a complex locking mechanism keeping it in place. Only way to enter it, only way I knew at least, was to be buzzed in by the person working the graveyard shift at the desk. Although if I had to guess, there was some other secret way in. Not that I needed to know. I kept walking over to the front entrance. Then I stood in front of the glass doors. I waved at the desk even though I knew the camera was being checked at the moment. Moments later I heard the telltale sounds of the doors unlocking. There we go. I grabbed the handle and made my way inside. There, sitting behind the desk, I saw Secretary Ghani. He was in the process of taking off headphones and looked none too pleased. Usually he was above taking graveyard shifts like this. Typically the after-hours desk was manned by one of the lower-level employees. However, Governor Aja arranged for Secretary Ghani to be in on desk duty tonight for our meeting. Which means in a roundabout way I was responsible for Secretary Ghani being stuck here tonight. Whoops. I decided to walk up towards him to make some small talk. Oh hey Devon. You're here a bit late. Which is to say right on time. Oh well, you know. I guess time got away from me. I was busy listening to some music. Oh yeah? What's your fix these days, dude? I was listening to Talay's newest album. Dude, Talay? That shit sucks, man. Totally overrated trash. You like that garbage overplayed pop? Yeah. Well, different strokes for different folks, I guess. Right. Alright, well, Aisha's in her office as usual. She's ready when you are. You know your way over there. Down the hallway and to the left. Of course. I'll go see her now. Tell her I say hi. Sure. I nodded and shuffled away from the desk. To the left of the desk was a long, plain hallway. There were various paintings hung depicting Panthea's long and storied history. They were all nicely done. I walked over to the closest one and put my hand on the bottom of the frame. There were no touching signs, of course, but I wasn't supposed to obey them. There we go. I pressed a small button underneath the frame of the closest painting. Great. The sensors were now deactivated. After hours, the hallway was in sentry mode. When it was in sentry mode, there were sensors in the middle of the hallway that detected anybody walking by. If the sensors caught anybody, chain-link fences with heavy metal bottoms dropped from the ceiling. If you look closely, you can actually see the markings indicating where the fences will drop from. I even heard that the fences were electrified. That part might not be true though. The way to get around it lay in the paintings. The paintings on either end of the hallway had small buttons underneath their frames. Pressing them deactivated the sensors for 2 minutes, more than enough time to cross. This all seemed a bit excessive. Building it from the ground up would probably be too much. However, according to Miss Aisha, the chain-link fences were already there when she became governor. A previous governor apparently had them constructed, where they dropped down manually. Miss Aisha just adapted it to work with sensors to be an actually efficient security measure. It was a super well kept secret though. Only a literal handful of people knew about it. The other security measures were all the stuff that experienced burglars couldn't get around. However, something like this, nobody could anticipate. It would almost certainly foil any nefarious plot. And if I knew Miss Aisha well enough, there was probably one other super secret measure that only she, and maybe a different group of people, knew about. Not that I needed to concern myself with that. With sentry mode deactivated, I walked down the hallway and opened the door, to the left, to Miss Aisha's office. She was sitting behind her desk, waiting for me to arrive. She probably expected me to get there slightly early. I hope she didn't hold that against me. She probably wouldn't. She's nice. Is she? Ah, Devon. Ma'am. I slightly bowed. It's been far, far too long since we've had a nice chat. That's my fault. No, it's nobody's fault. Anyway, I'm just glad we could meet, even if it is slightly strange circumstances. Please come in. Make yourself at home. I just nodded at this and moved forwards to take a seat opposite Aisha. Her room was quite lovely. The back walls were bookshelves housing who knew how many stories. The side walls had several plaques, pictures, medals, a display case or two. The rug on the floor was equal parts luxurious and down to earth. There were a number of interesting knickknacks on Aisha's desk. A Rubik's Cube, a little globe, an actual pen sticking in an ink pot, a jar of loose change, a statue of an emperor made of jade, and right behind Miss Aisha was a piece that really brought the whole place together. Painted with surprising detail, Aisha stood proudly in front of Panthea, a calm smile plastered on her face. I thought it was a really good portrait. The artist, C, usually did street work, but Miss Aisha personally reached out to them to make this important piece of art. I always thought that was really emblematic of Miss Aisha's personality, looking to reach out to the little people. The whole room was lit by a sole lamp standing in the corner of the room. Miss Aisha had a personal lamp on her desk, and the room had regular lighting, but at night time she liked this setup. Excuse me. So how have you been, Devon? Staying healthy? Of course. I make sure to maintain a solid diet and exercise regularly. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about your mental health. Oh, that's fine too. Is it? Last time we spoke, you opened up about some doubts you had on that end. You know, the last thing I want for you is to lose yourself in the clouds. It's been fine, really. I was only half lying. Sure, I've been starting to spiral more frequently as of late, but I've also been catching myself more frequently. To me, that's progress. Most importantly, there haven't been any signs of these spirals interfering with my work. I was just as useful as ever. I really think you should consider seeing a therapist. I have someone in mind. I can give you a personal referral if you'd like. No, I don't want to give you undue work. Really, giving you a referral to a therapist is no sweat off my back. But opening up to a therapist would give you more work, right? It was rare Miss Aisha didn't have a response. Trust me, I'm fine. After a pause, Miss Aisha just sighed. I trust you on this matter. Still, I want you to look after yourself. What about any hobbies? I know you like to keep yourself busy, but you should still have plenty of spare time. You should take up an interest. I think that's healthy. This again. I don't know, ma'am. I tried looking for interests when I was young. I didn't really do well with any of them. Having a hobby isn't about excelling at it. An interest is something you do for no other reason that you like to act in and of itself. Like the act in and of itself. It's a Zen thing. That didn't coincide with how I remember it. If you're bad at it, what's even the point? I also didn't really find anything that spoke to me. You've grown as a person, haven't you? You've matured. Your tastes have matured. I think you might find joy in things you previously didn't. Maybe. At the very least, I think it's worth a shot. It'd be healthy. If you say so. What about you, ma'am? Excuse me? You said hobbies are a good thing to have. Do you have a hobby? Something you do to kill stress? Aja let out a light, gentle laugh. Ha! Unfortunately not, Devon. You may have free time, but I will not be so lucky for the coming years. Keeping a city in check is a taxing occupation. Doubly so when the city is Panthea. But you know all about that. Still, I know you're not working 24/7. So how are you spending your free time? Devon, we were talking about you. It's impolite to try and change the topic. Sorry, man. I wasn't trying to be. I know. Of course, I know you'd never try to be impolite. I'm just letting you know so you can do better in the future, okay? Right. Thank you, man. That's useful to know. Good. Glad that matter is settled. Miss Aja stretched her arms out and then put them back on the desk and began to tap them in a rhythmic fashion. So, with that matter settled, we should probably move on to other matters. The ones I called you here to discuss. Sorry, I did... Something in my throat today. I swear to God. I recognise that transition. Miss Aja's face mostly remained the same, but I could tell that her expression was slightly different from the one she usually wore. It took a long time for me to recognise that change. This was business Aja. Good. Backwards as it was, I actually felt more comfortable with business Aja. It was more familiar. Ma'am? Yes, Devon. If you don't mind, I have a question to ask. Well then, by all means, feel free to ask it. Okay. I took a deep breath. So after the Athens job, I removed all evidence of my presence and left. All according to plan. Once I exited the building, I ran away. Right. That's all very good. Right, so I checked the news after it all happened. I do that a lot. Just, you know, to get some idea about public sentiment of the thing. And I found out that there were 2 people who died that night. Correct. I was there when they found the second body. Horrible event, that. I'd imagine. But, I didn't know how to phrase what I was about to say. The last thing I wanted to do was come across as insulting or accusatory, but I felt like I'd regret it if I didn't ask about this. I looked into it some more, and according to the article in the Oracle, the victim seemed to be killed by being struck over the head with a bronze bell. And, you know, to most people that would just be coincidence, but that doesn't really seem likely. I mean, who'll sing a psalm? I said the thrush as she sat on a bush. I'll sing a psalm. Who'll toll the bell? I said the bull, because I can pull. I'll toll the bell. It matches the next verse. But I didn't kill that person. I'm the cock robin killer, but I don't know what that body's doing there. And from the report on the Oracle, it doesn't look like the bell could have been planted there post-mortem either. Why are you so quick to jump to conclusions? Sometimes a bell is just a bell. Well, that's... I thought about what Miss Aisha had just said. It is possible that the murder weapon was just a coincidence. Is it possible that the murder weapon was just a coincidence? No. No. Something like that was too unlikely. I don't think that's likely. I mean, it was a murder at the same place. I can't write that off as a coincidence. You're probably right about that. Oh well. For your next mission, remember to skip the bell. Yes, of course, I know that. But that's not what I'm asking. You're asking something? I've yet to hear a question. What happened to that victim? Miss Aisha looked down, considering her words carefully. Twice now I'd caught her at a loss for words. Eventually, however, she composed herself and gave a simple response. Does it matter? It isn't something you need to concern yourself with. We can just view it as a lucky case of additional noise and move on. Move on? Could I just do that? It was an attractive offer. I didn't want to linger on this any longer than she did. But regarding this, I had a rare speck of curiosity, and much more common spark of uncertainty. I don't know if I can do that, Miss Aisha. It seems like something important. Something I deserve an answer to. Deserve? Something I'd like to know, I mean. It's just, as far as I know, there are only 3 people who know the truth of the cock robin killer. I know I didn't kill that guy. And I know the other person couldn't have done that either. Not with this time frame. Devon, I didn't like the direction I was heading with this. However, I couldn't stop now. Additionally, there were some details about the Oracle that stick out to me. When that reporter found the body, they'd already been dead for a bit. The Psalm connection wasn't found until the police arrived and searched the body. I don't know exactly when the Bell victim died. However, I do know that even before the police arrived, nobody was allowed to leave the venue for any reason. And the Bell verse comes after the Psalm verse. People don't just happen to have bells on them. So one way or another, I'm pretty sure the killer had to know that the Psalm verse would be fulfilled that night ahead of time. Tiffany seriously implying that I killed the man outside? That's not... As you pointed out, after Mr. Athen was found dead, nobody was allowed to leave. That includes me. Therefore, it's impossible I'd have anything to do with the Bell victim. But Miss Aja, it's not clear when the Bell victim was killed. If you wanted, you could have left the gala earlier, killed him, and then slipped back in before the Mr. Athen chaos. That's... Ma'am, if you wanted somebody dead, you know I would have been more than happy to do my job. That's what I'm here for. That's why I'm here, to kill for you. I'm just worried that if you took matters into your own hands, if there's any evidence that leads back to you, that's enough. In a way I hadn't heard before, Aja had raised her voice. She was clearly legitimately angry. Uh-oh. Are you accusing me of murder? Of killing a man? I assure you I did no such thing, and if you continue to make such baseless allegations, there will be consequences. But you ordered this guy, our guy, to kill people. That's as good as killing a man yourself. I went too far. Stupid, so stupid. I'm sorry, man. I was completely out of line. I meant no offense. For a few moments, Miss Aja just stared at me with fury in her eyes, and gradually she recomposed herself. For your information, this gala was my personal fundraiser. And as the host, I was indentured with many duties, including constantly making my way around the room, greeting guests, having the right conversations. If you were to take witness statements, everyone there could attest that at no point did I slip out of sight. Additionally, as you so wisely pointed out, if I wanted somebody dead, I would contact you for that. Please know that I had absolutely no knowledge of the death of Maximilian Collins ahead of time, and know that I do not know the identity of whoever killed him. Of course, I'm so sorry to have questioned you. Leave it there. But, then isn't that an issue? That somebody died in line with the Cock Robin killings and we didn't know about it? That isn't your concern. Right. Again, I'm sorry. Miss Aja took a deep sigh and adjusted herself in her chair. It's fine. Honestly, I should expect outbursts like this more frequently. Just try to keep your mind in mind your place. Making accusations like that is not your place. Understood. I think you should remember why we're doing all of this. It's so easy to simplify the situation and have doubts. But what we're doing, Devon, is important. People like to complain about Panthea, about how it is now, how short their memories are. Do they remember what it was like before I rose to power? Before I was elected? We were a shit stain on the map, a nothing. Now we're a capital of thriving industry. Crime is down, prospects are on the up. We're slowly becoming a utopia. A place where everybody can live simply and happily. Exactly. Right now we're going through some growing pains. Getting to that utopian place is obviously a slow process. Made doubly so since I have to spend much of my time maintaining the status quo. People are inevitably attracted to seats of power, and the governor's seat seems to be the most attainable. The wrong person in my seat and all that power could be spent on personal luxuries and ill-thought-out policies. So of course, much effort must be spent on keeping me in my seat. Sacrifices must be made to keep me in my seat. Because if I fell from my seat, it would all be for nothing. And because I spend so much time trying to keep my seat, the march towards a utopia moves ever slower. People complain that I haven't done enough in the relatively little amount of time that I've had. They aren't patient. Most people aren't. Rome wasn't built in a day, but finally, we're in a stable enough equilibrium that I can spend more time crafting this utopia. And already you can see the results of my vision. Obviously, I have to take small steps. Anything too drastic will disrupt the balance. But unlike most people, I'm patient. I see the bigger picture. We'll make this utopia together, Devon. And once we have, our last act can be cleaning away the filth we've ignored for the sake of stability. Then, retirement and peace. We retire having been useful. More than useful, we'll have saved an entire city. If we pull it off, it'll be amazing. It'll be a dream. But you'd have to be dreaming that such results can be built without blood, sweat and tears, which is why your job is so important. I nodded. I'm not the first to attempt something like this, but I'll be the one to succeed. I've learned from the mistakes of the past. There won't be an Apis ready to gore me to death, not so long as I have you. Exactly, ma'am. Miss Aja was exactly right. That was my value, making sure that she could shape the city the way it needed to be shaped. Already her policies were helping all of Panthea, and she'd just gotten started to truly put her plans into effect. If I could make that happen, then my job would be worth it. So in the name of these plans, it was worth it to become a killer. Who says these plans would really work? No, I can't spiral now. But really, did I agree with any of this? Did these values hold up? I shook these thoughts away. Of course this held up. There are two simple truths in life. Without power, you cannot make change. Without tenacity, you cannot protect power. You cannot deny either of these things. So Aisha's logic held firm. And making a change by killing is the best I could hope for. It was the only way to make good of my skill set. I remember when I first joined the army, it wasn't out of any sense of patriotism. I didn't give two shits about the war. In fact, I didn't even know much about the war at all. Little bit I did know made me suspect that we weren't even on the right side of it all, though that was a bit above me. Now, I joined the war for less inspiring reasons. I didn't really have any meaning in life. I wanted to get away from home. I wanted to feel like a hero. I wanted to feel something. On some level, I wasn't scared of dying. All of those factors combined with a random whim to drive me right into the army. That was a real turning point in my life. For good or bad, I still remained unsure. The glamorous ideal of army life that gets tossed around didn't reflect reality at all. Well, that didn't exactly catch me off guard. I'd already been warned not to expect too much. Still, I was surprised by how mundane much of army life was in the beginning. It mostly consisted of harsh training and strict regiment. I got in shape. I learned how to use weapons. I learned how to operate a base. I had a strict schedule. I had to show complete obedience. And you know, I kind of thrived in the environment. I mean, dealing with a strict regime was pretty much a non-issue. And I might not be able to excel at math or art or whatever, but I could do push-ups and firing drills as many times as you want. It might have been brutal, but it was simple in a way that I could appreciate. To improve, you just had to work. I could handle that. So I worked, and I improved. I acted as a model soldier for a while. And while I got some slight acknowledgement from my superiors for this, not much came of it initially. For a long time, army life was aimless, and then all of a sudden, things got a lot less boring. The base I was holed up in was the subject of a surprise attack. Before I knew what was happening, I could smell sulphur and hear gunfire all around. We were caught completely unawares. Most of the soldiers I'd spent time with died in the attack. I felt sad for them, but I never got particularly close with any of them. Nowadays, I don't really remember most of them. This isn't one of those cases where I was traumatized or outraged by the death of my friends or anything. I'm only bringing up their deaths to contrast with my survival. I remember that night with crystal clarity. I remember where and when I shot every enemy soldier. Despite so many of my comrades dying, I was oddly calm the whole time. I felt as though I was going to die any moment anyways, so I might as well play for the high score. Headshot, double kill. Ultimately, I ended up killing dozens of enemy soldiers. I didn't know exactly how it happened. It's not like I was a god of war or anything. I just was using my training to the best of my ability. I still don't know why I was able to survive the attack. Maybe taking my training that serious legitimately improved my skills in a significant amount over my peers. Maybe my cold demeanor during the incident allowed me to view things with increased amount of logic. Maybe the luck of my bloodline finally kicked in when it mattered most. I don't know how to explain it. All I know is that despite the numbers disadvantage, we won that battle. And the person who killed the most enemy combatants single-handedly was me. What was a blur was what happened next. Reinforcements came. I was referred to a psychiatrist or something shortly after. That battle was my first and last time I was officially in combat during my army years. The war ended up ending pretty shortly after the incident. Not because we won or lost, but because the country just decided it wasn't worth fighting any longer. Time to just stop having people kill each other. Regardless, I was still applauded for my actions. I was actually given a pretty prestigious award for my heroic last stand. It was a nice looking medal. I remember the award ceremony. There were so many big shots in the room. Even my father bothered showing up. Everybody applauded. And I remember the weird dissonance in my head at the time. What did I do to deserve this? What I did, if you recall, was kill a couple of dozen people to try and stay alive. I didn't think it was particularly notable. It wasn't even a demonstration of outstanding skill or anything. I still felt like my survival was a fluke. This is the most acknowledgement I'd ever received in my life. And I was getting it for mass murder? It didn't really click for me then. Shortly after being dismissed from the army, I fell into the darkest period of my life. I didn't understand things like I did now. See, chalking things up as a murder was missing the point. Killing people didn't really matter, big picture. People die all the time. Now that doesn't mean we should just be stabbing random people for no reason. There are plenty of times where a single death is outweighed by the good that death causes. In the case of that last stand of mine, I might have killed a lot of people, but it was for a good cause. Because of my actions, the country kept that base firm. It helped end the war faster. Really, I'm grateful for my time in the army. When you do something for the first time, it opens a pathway in your brain. Every time you do it after the first time, the pathway opens up a little more. But it's the first time when the pathway is still closed that's the hardest. Because of that attack, the killing pathway opened for me, and because of my time in the army, I had the skills that I was now putting to good use. At any rate, I believe we should begin discussing actual relevant business matters. Aisha's words hit like a jolt of electricity. I'd been zoning out. First and foremost, I must congratulate you for the Athen job. Excellently handled, as always. Thank you, ma'am. It is unfortunate he'll no longer be able to be a donation stream for us, but sadly it was an inevitability. As I said, the man got greedy, but not particularly smart. Knowing as much as he did, he still thought it wise to attempt to blackmail us. Ha! I would have thought him wiser than that. Well, perhaps he was, back in the day. Age takes us all, after all, and Athen was only barely holding on at that point. Sad to see, so sad to see. We shouldn't have let him know anything in the first place. That was an inevitability. The man was wise and powerful enough to hire investigators for anyone he got in business with, and not the type that could be handled. For the longest time, he was a sensible ally to our cause. I think it'd be best to remember the time we had with him, and dismiss his latest transgressions as nothing more than a dying man's impulse. How merciful, ma'am. I believe in mercy. I respect mercy. I wish I could afford to give it more often. Mercy in a world that gives none isn't mercy. It's weakness. My dad taught me that. Yes, that does track. Well, it's true enough sentiment. Sad as it may be. Hopefully one day we can afford to run you out of a job. Though it often feels like that day keeps getting further and further away. Miss Aisha looked wistfully out the window. If I was more naive, I would have thought I might not be the only one having second thoughts about things. Ma'am, I do sincerely apologise that I failed to fulfill the optional objective. I promise to try to do better in the future. Oh, that's fine. Honestly, thinking back, the florist seemed entirely unnecessary. Sure, it would have been nice to get the moral high ground for a bit. Having your constituents be falsely accused is a great look. I'm sure the Oracle would have had a field day with that. But Mr. Shea spun the story wonderfully, even without that addition. Honestly, you usually need to pay good money for that sort of press he provides. If I didn't know better, I would have thought I had him on my payroll. The top donor of Governor Aja's was murdered by an unknown assailant. That alone was enough material to string a number of conspiracies and sympathetic headlines. Since nobody knew about the blackmailing thing, this murder looked to be a loss for Aja, not a gain for her. The important thing is, it appears no evidence was left tying you to the scene. You're still completely clean. Nothing even had to be scrubbed away. Good on that, by the way. So long as you're still able to do your job, you're still important. Thank you, ma'am. As Aja leaned back in her chair, relaxing some. But I know you tend to get in your head about your failures. I hope you don't obsess over the optional objective thing. Look at it this way, if you're really that bothered about it, there's always the optional assignment. She was referring to Laverna. Apparently she'd been called to the scene to help investigate the murder. She was the one who saw through my ruse and foiled the optional objective. When I heard about that, I felt vindicated. I knew the usual crew wouldn't see through my ploy. Not that fast, at any rate. Laverna seemed to be reasonably intelligent. In this business, that was a bad thing. She needed to be handled. I'll get right on that, ma'am. In fact, I've already begun making preparations. There are some oddities about her. My intel suggests that not so fast. Miss Aisha interrupted me and then reached down and placed a file on the table before me. Dealing with Laverna would certainly be useful. However, there is a slightly more pressing job. Now granted, I'm also making this an optional assignment. There is no immediate need to deal with this individual. They don't pose a massive threat. That said, if you were to prioritize anybody, I would sooner see it that he dies than Laverna. I consider him a bigger risk in the short term. Sullenly, I nodded. Then I picked up the file and began to thumb through it. Who was this punk threatening Governor Aja's position? Name, Locke. Now, he's the one who gave Vels his job. Skills, gambling prowess, experienced cheater, pro-con man. Personality, exceedingly arrogant, scheming, skeptical, intelligent. Notable traits, may possess large amount of money. Known locations, spends most nights at Nahoy's Nest, underground gambling casino. Attached with the file was a slightly blurry photo of the man. Terrible lighting, bad angle, but I can make out the general make of him. His tacky suit and unkempt hair definitely kept him on the identification front. I looked it over a few more times, and then I looked back up to Miss Aisha. Is this seriously all the information we have on this guy? Isn't information gathering part of your job? Yes, of course. Like a lot of the city's unscrupulous characters, information on him is scant. Is this not sufficient for you to do your job adequately? No, of course not. I can handle things with this. It'd be a bit difficult, but nothing I couldn't deal with. If you don't mind, could I know why we're dealing with him? Same reason as Laverna. He's an unknown factor and seems to threaten my position as governor. The reason he is of a higher priority than Laverna is because he seems to pose an active threat as opposed to a passive one. We're still unaware of exactly what he has in mind, but frankly, it would be preferable to deal with him before we do. So you're like the supreme leader of China then. Anyone that might threaten your position, you just deal with them. I see. That's all you need to know. Of course, ma'am. She was right, that's all I needed to know. If he posed a threat to keeping the city a safe place, then he had to be dealt with. In addition, he seemed to be a low-rate scammer, spending nights in low-life underground casinos. There shouldn't be too much of a problem removing a character like this. The lack of info made dealing with him a bit of a problem, but I was patient. I knew where he spent his time. He'd appear there before too long. Well then, if that's all you wish to discuss, you can go now. Your payment for the last job will be delivered shortly. Of course, ma'am. Trust that the lock problem will be adequately handled in due time. Good. Oh, but don't stress over it too much. I meant what I said. It's unhealthy for you to wholly devote yourself to this business. You're of no use to me if you become unhinged. I'll practice moderation, and I'll look for some sort of hobby. Excellent. Have a pleasant week, Devon. I look forward to our next meeting. Perhaps then it could be a more personal meeting. I nodded and then left the room. But inside my heart, I couldn't agree with their last statement. By the time of our next meeting, I would deal with the job. I'd show him my convictions by achieving results. I was a weapon. The city's weapon. Weapons were important. Without them, evil would be undeterred, uninterrupted. But no, not just a weapon. There would be plenty of people willing to turn themselves into weapons. I had to be a perfect weapon. When aimed at a target, I'd shoot post-haste, and never miss. Sorry, Locke. Wherever you are, I hope you enjoy your last hours alive. I like Tilley. Tilley's fun. Tilley's cute. I'd love to get a drink with Tilley. Not a big Secretary Garni fan. Gotta be real here. And yeah, look, I don't have a lot more to say on this one. Not to say I didn't appreciate the scene. And you damn well better have appreciated it. This stack was exponentially more difficult to create for obvious reasons. I'm just saying, nothing's jumping out to me to crack wise about. Nothing calls out to my soul. I should do something, you know? Alright, here's an idea. Gambles. Gambles always put me in a good mood. You like gambling? Let's gamble. So let's see, what to gamble about? Let's make it something super peripheral to the actual plot. Have a nice change of pace. How about Devon's dad? You know, the one who got, like, a snippet about? I mean, clearly the father fucked him up somehow. I don't think I'm blowing any minds with that revelation. Dollars to donuts, Devon ends up reflecting on him some more before this is all over. In fact, I don't need to bet dollars or donuts or whatever that saying means. I know for a fact we get more information on him. You think the dad's still around? Or you think he's 6 feet under? Both seem possible. There isn't a strong way to determine one way or another. The perfect bet. So what do you say? I'm going to say he's alive. No, dead. Oh, I don't know. Dead. Cool. I have no opinions on this bet because it's just sort of random. Wait, does that make it a bad bet? No. No way, no. Yeah, this is a good bet. Now put down some chips. Let's go with 4. I'm not too confident on it. Cool. Good bet, good talk. This is good. We didn't get any new keys though, which means we're going to be continuing our way into Act 3 on this one. Until then, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next episode.